911. I need police immediately. There's a man trespassing on property my son liked first. That's exactly what this HOA Karen said when she called emergency services to evict me from my own legally purchased lake lot. Her adult son had childhood memories of fishing here, so apparently that gave him property rights over my legal deed. What started as the most ridiculous emergency call in history quickly spiraled into something much darker than I ever imagined. Recoil Stories brings you the wildest neighbor battles, so comment below where you're watching from. My name is Marcus Henderson, and I'm a garden designer who transforms outdoor spaces into living art. 2 years ago, I lost my grandmother who raised me after my parents died in a car crash when I was 8. She left me $400,000, and I used every penny to fulfill our shared dream of owning lakefront property. I'm usually the guy who avoids conflict at all costs, but I learned something important about myself during this whole mess. When pushed against a wall, I've got a steel core that even surprised me. My wife, Isabella, teaches art at the local elementary school. We've been married for 12 years, and she grew up in foster care, so stability and home mean everything to her. She's got this amazing ability to see beauty everywhere, and she's usually the peacemaker in any situation. But when someone threatens our family, she transforms into a fierce lioness. Her greatest fear has always been losing the security we've built together, and that fear was about to be tested in ways we never imagined. The day everything started, I was working peacefully on my dream property, describing my vision to Isabella as she painted nearby. I wanted to build a sustainable home that would blend perfectly with nature, plus a community art garden where neighbors could find peace and inspiration. I had all my legal permits, detailed architectural plans, and every single document properly filed. Everything was done correctly, and with so much love for this beautiful piece of land. That's when Tyler Sterling came storming over like a toddler, having the world's biggest tantrum. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he screamed, his face turning red. "This is my spot. I've been calling dibs on this lot since I was 12 years old. Every summer I fished here. Every winter I dreamed about building here. My mom runs this place, and she's gonna make you leave, right now." I tried to stay calm and explain the situation. "Tyler, I understand you have memories here, but I own this land legally. Here's my deed, my permits, my surveys. Everything is in proper order." But Tyler wasn't having any of it. "I don't care about your stupid papers. Mom, this guy's stealing my lake lot." Enter Victoria Sterling, appearing like an avenging angel in full Karen regalia. Picture this: clipboard clutched like a weapon, measuring tape hanging from her belt, thick violation handbook tucked under her arm, and reading glasses on a chain that she kept adjusting dramatically. The woman had perfected the art of intimidation through office supplies. Neighbors automatically stepped back when they saw her coming, like she had some kind of invisible force field of authority. Victoria approached with deadly calm and said, "Mister, my son has had his heart set on this location for 16 years. You're violating the spirit of our community. Just because you have money doesn't mean you can buy what rightfully belongs to others." I tried to be respectful despite the absurdity. "Mrs. Sterling, I respect Tyler's memories, but I'm the legal owner now. I'm actually planning to enhance this property and share it with the community." Victoria let out this bitter laugh. "Share? Ha! My son shouldn't have to share what's been his all along." When I politely but firmly refused to pack up and leave my own legally purchased property, Victoria's carefully controlled mask completely slipped. She dramatically pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed 911 right in front of everyone. 911? "Yes, I need police immediately at Lakefront Drive. There's a man trespassing on property that my son liked first." "What do you mean liked first?" "That's exactly what I said. My son has emotional attachment and prior claim going back 16 years. No, we don't own it legally, but there are moral rights here. This is harassment of longtime residents by some rich outsider. I'm standing there watching this 55-year-old woman argue with emergency dispatch that her grown son's childhood crush on a piece of land gave him property rights. I couldn't decide if I was living in a comedy or a nightmare. Spoiler alert. It was definitely both. 2 police officers arrived. Officer Davis, a veteran cop who looked like he'd seen everything twice, and Officer Lopez, young and still believing in justice. Both looked completely confused by whatever dispatch had told them. Officer Davis asked, "Ma'am, let me understand this. You're saying your son has property rights because he liked it first?" Victoria drew herself up to full, indignant height. In a civilized community, there are unwritten rules. When someone has emotional investment in a property for years, has dreams attached to it, that should count for something. Tyler jumped in, emboldened by his mother's support. "I used to fish here every day. I planned my whole future here. That has to count for something." Officer Lopez looked genuinely puzzled. "Sir, do you have any legal documents showing ownership or rental agreement?" Tyler's response was priceless. "I don't need documents. I have feelings." A small crowd of neighbors had gathered, some filming with their phones. I noticed the reactions were mixed. Some people looked shocked by Victoria's audacity, others seemed amused by the whole spectacle, but a few were actually nodding along with her twisted logic. That scared me more than her threats. I was starting to realize this wasn't really about property ownership. This was about power and control. The police verified my ownership through multiple documents, and Officer Davis patiently explained they couldn't remove a legal property owner. Victoria's face turned bright red as she realized her dramatic gesture had failed completely. As the officers prepared to leave, Victoria delivered her parting threat with ice-cold precision. "Mr. Henderson, you may have legal papers, but I have something more powerful. I have community standards. The HOA has many tools to ensure people understand how things work here. I suggest you familiarize yourself with our extensive regulations." Tyler stormed off, shouting, "This isn't over. Nobody disrespects my mom. You'll regret this." Isabella squeezed my hand and whispered, "That felt like a declaration of war." I squeezed back and said, "Because it was. But we have the law on our side." Isabella looked worried. Something tells me she doesn't care about laws. But what Victoria didn't know was that I had just installed something that would capture every single one of her next moves. What do you think it was? Type cameras if you think Marcus installed security cameras, or type lawyer if you think he called legal help first. 2 weeks passed, and Victoria's strategic warfare began in earnest. The first shot came in the form of a professional sound monitoring device pointed directly at my yard. She sent an official HOA violation notice on legal letterhead. Ambient bird noise exceeds community sound standards during peak morning hours, measured at 47 decibels. Remedy required within 72 hours or face $200 daily fines. I'm standing there holding this notice, looking at the songbirds that have lived here longer than any of us, and I realize I'm being legally harassed by nature itself. I'm being sued by songbirds, I told Isabella, birds that were here before the neighborhood existed. This is officially the weirdest chapter of my life. The dress code violation came next, delivered with the same official pomp. All residents must maintain appropriate professional attire when visible from public areas. Tank tops, work clothes, and casual dress create negative visual impact affecting neighborhood property values. Violation fine. $150 per incident. Isabella read it aloud, her voice rising in disbelief. They want you to wear a button-down shirt to garden in your own yard that you legally own. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. Should I wear a 3-piece suit to water the flowers? Maybe a tuxedo for weeding? But underneath the humor, we both knew this was psychological warfare, designed to wear us down through death by 1,000 paper cuts. Victoria also launched a sophisticated social media stalking campaign, creating something called lakefront community standards with hundreds of fake accounts. She posted daily surveillance photos of my property with inflammatory captions like Day 12, unsightly construction materials destroying our peaceful waterfront ambiance, and how long must we endure this construction chaos in our serene community? The comments were clearly from fake profiles, but they painted a picture of community outrage that didn't actually exist. It was like she was trying to manufacture consent for her harassment campaign through digital manipulation. I decided to call my college friend Rachel Thompson, a real estate data analyst who originally helped me find this property. Rachel has this incredible photographic memory for numbers and patterns, and she works for a major real estate firm analyzing market trends. When I explained the escalating harassment, Her analytical mind immediately kicked into gear. Marcus, this sounds personal and targeted, but let me run comprehensive analysis on recent sales patterns in your area. HOAs don't usually wage war against single residents, unless they want something specific. She promised to dig deeper and get back to me with whatever she found. Rachel's preliminary data mining revealed a disturbing trend that made my blood run cold. 6 lakefront properties had sold in the past 18 months. Alabama L to HOA, or HOA-connected buyers. Alabama L after the original owners received extensive harassment about community violations. The pattern was unmistakable once you knew what to look for. Marcus, this isn't random bullying. Rachel told me during our follow-up call. This is systematic property acquisition through intimidation. Victoria isn't just trying to annoy you, she's trying to force you out so the HOA can buy your land cheap. Meanwhile, Isabella discovered through casual neighborhood conversations that Victoria had been conducting what she called character assessment interviews about me with other residents. Mrs. Patricia Wong, our next-door neighbor, pulled Isabella aside one afternoon to warn her. That woman asked very specific questions about your husband's mental stability, financial background, and whether he seemed aggressive or unstable. She's building some kind of case against you both. Isabella came home shaken by this revelation. She's not just harassing us randomly. This is strategic character assassination. She's laying groundwork for something much bigger. The harassment escalated to physical damage when my newly installed fence posts were mysteriously knocked over during the night. These weren't just random acts of vandalism. The posts had been professionally surveyed and fully permitted, and someone had deliberately targeted them. Security camera footage showed a shadowy figure in dark clothing, but the face remained hidden. The damage estimate was $300, but more importantly, it signaled escalation from psychological to physical harassment. I knew we'd crossed into dangerous territory. That's when I met my first ally. Mr. Thompson, a 72-year-old retired history teacher, approached me at the community mailbox one morning. "Son, I've been watching this neighborhood power dynamic for 15 years, he said quietly, looking around to make sure Victoria wasn't nearby. What Victoria's doing to you follows an exact pattern. She did something very similar to the Rodriguez family before they sold their beautiful lake house to the HOA for way under market value last year. He became my first confirmed ally, sharing crucial intelligence about Victoria's past campaigns against other families. Later that week, Victoria cornered me at the community mailbox, speaking in a carefully controlled voice that was somehow more threatening than shouting. "Mr. Henderson, I've been HOA president for 8 years. I've seen many troublemakers come and go. The ones who refuse to understand community standards, they always end up leaving. Always. Without exception." I looked her straight in the eye and asked, "Are you threatening me, Mrs. Sterling?" Her smile never wavered, but her eyes went ice cold. "I'm educating you about how social dynamics work in established communities. Some people learn easy, others learn hard. Which type are you, Mr. Henderson?" Rachel called me that evening with her preliminary investigation results, and her voice was tense with concern. "Marcus, I found something significant. 3 of those recent lakefront sales, the HOA purchased them for 60 to 70% of market value, and all 3 previous owners were dealing with violation after violation after violation before they finally gave up and sold." The pieces were starting to fit together into a terrifying picture. "You think it's intentional property manipulation?" I asked. "I think you need to document absolutely everything from now on," Rachel replied. "And I think I need to dig much deeper into HOA financial records and board member connections." That night, I realized this wasn't about personality conflict or community standards. This was about systematic property acquisition through harassment. I began setting up a comprehensive documentation system, security cameras, recording devices, financial research, and legal consultation. Isabella looked at me as I worked and said with fierce determination, "If we run away now, she'll do this to the next family. And the next. Someone has to stand up to this system." I knew she was right, but I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole really went. What Rachel discovered in those financial records would expose a conspiracy so massive that it would shock the entire community. But would anyone believe us? The next part gets absolutely insane. If you're enjoying this wild HOA drama, Recoil Stories has more unbelievable neighbor stories that'll blow your mind. What do you think Rachel found in those records? 1 week later, I arrived Monday morning to find my construction fence systematically cut in multiple places, with materials scattered and water damaged from overnight rain. The destruction was deliberate and methodical. Someone had taken their time to inflict maximum damage. A professional assessment put the cost at $800. But the real message was clear. The harassment was escalating to serious vandalism. Security footage showed 2 figures moving through the darkness, faces obscured. But I recognized one person's distinctive slouched walk. Tyler's body language is unmistakable when you've seen him storm around the neighborhood enough times. Isabella surveyed the deliberate destruction and started crying, not from sadness but from genuine fear. "Marcus, I'm genuinely scared now," she said, her voice shaking. First, it was silly rules about bird noise. Now it's destruction of our property in the middle of the night. What's next? What if they escalate to threatening us directly? What if they try to hurt us physically? I held her close, feeling her trembling against me. "We're not giving up on our dream," I promised. "But we're also not fighting this battle alone anymore. It's time to bring in reinforcements." Rachel arrived that afternoon with her laptop, thick files, and the most serious expression I'd ever seen on her face. "Marcus, what I found is much bigger than targeted harassment," she announced. "This HOA has systematically acquired 8 lakefront properties in just 3 years. Their current real estate portfolio shows they're sitting on almost $2 million in waterfront assets." She pulled out spreadsheets and charts that painted a picture of organized property manipulation. The numbers were staggering. Victoria wasn't just targeting me. She was running an entire operation. Rachel had also tracked down Linda Rodriguez, a 67-year-old former lakefront homeowner who agreed to share her story. Linda's voice shook as she described her ordeal. "They sent me 47 violation notices in 6 months. Mailbox height incorrect. Garden too wild. Car parked 3 inches beyond driveway boundary. Every single day brought new demands, new fines, new threats. When Victoria finally offered to buy my house to resolve all ongoing compliance issues, I was emotionally and financially exhausted. I accepted their offer, $180,000 for a property worth $280,000. I thought I was escaping, but really I was being robbed. At the grocery store, I encountered potential inside help. Diana Walsh, a 52-year-old HOA board member and retired paralegal, nervously approached me near the produce section. She kept looking over her shoulder like she expected Victoria to appear. "Mr. Henderson, I need you to know that not everyone on the board agrees with Victoria's aggressive methods," she whispered. "But Victoria has comprehensive files on every board member. Personal information, financial struggles, marital problems, legal issues. She makes it very difficult to oppose her decisions." Diana represented my potential inside source, but she was clearly terrified of Victoria's retaliation. Victoria launched sophisticated disinformation through neighborhood communication channels, spreading carefully crafted lies. Has anyone else noticed increased homeless activity near the Henderson construction site, which was complete fabrication? And construction noise violations are measurably affecting everyone's property values according to recent assessments. Though no such assessments existed, the neighborhood began splitting into visible factions. Her supporters were mostly older, long-term residents who feared change. My supporters included younger families and professionals who valued fairness. But there was also a significant group of nervous fence-sitters who were genuinely scared of Victoria's potential retaliation. I found an unsigned letter slipped under my front door that made my blood run cold. "Stop fighting community decisions or things will get much worse for you and your wife. You don't understand what you're dealing with or how far this can go." The tone suggested inside knowledge of Victoria's capabilities and future plans. Someone was warning me, but they were too afraid to identify themselves. This anonymous threat confirmed that Victoria's reach extended beyond what I could see, and that people were genuinely terrified of crossing her. Isabella underwent a complete transformation during this period, evolving from scared victim to fierce defender. "I will not let some power-drunk HOA president intimidate us into abandoning our dream home," she declared with steel in her voice. This harassment stops now, today. She began her own comprehensive documentation project. Time-stamped photographs, witness statements, social media screenshots, and financial impact calculations. Watching my gentle, peace-loving wife turn into a warrior was both inspiring and heartbreaking. That evening, sitting among damaged construction materials, I hit my lowest point and considered surrender. Isabella, maybe we should just cut our losses and sell. Move somewhere peaceful where we can build our garden without this constant warfare. Is proving a point really worth destroying our peace? Isabella's response became the turning point of our entire fight. If we run away now, she wins completely. And she'll absolutely do this to the next family who dares to buy lakefront property. And the next family after that. Someone has to stand up to this systematic bullying, and it might as well be us. Our security camera captured Tyler attempting to break into my storage shed at 2:17 a.m., and this time the motion-activated lights illuminated his face clearly. Tyler panicked when the alarm sounded and fled, but we finally had undeniable evidence of criminal activity. Officer Davis took the formal report with growing concern. Mr. Henderson, this situation is clearly escalating beyond property disputes into criminal territory. We can't make arrests without catching perpetrators in the act. But you should know, we've received similar reports about HOA-related harassment in this exact neighborhood multiple times over past years. Rachel's deeper financial investigation revealed that Victoria personally profits from HOA property acquisitions. Through substantial consulting fees, she votes for herself. Marcus, she's not just power-hungry, Rachel explained. She's directly profiting from these forced property sales. This is organized financial fraud. Victoria announced an emergency HOA meeting to address persistent safety violations and ongoing community disruption regarding my property, and her tone suggested major escalation was coming. 3 neighbors privately approached me before the emergency meeting. Mr. Thompson said, "I'm done staying silent. Time to speak truth publicly." Amanda Martinez added, "My children love watching your garden grow. This bullying has to stop." Frank Wilson concluded, "Victoria's accumulated too much unchecked power. Time for community accountability." The emergency meeting was about to begin, but what Victoria had planned would either destroy us completely or give us the evidence we needed to take her down. Which one do you think it was? Type destroy if you think Victoria's plan backfired, or type evidence if you think Marcus got the proof he needed. The emergency HOA meeting felt like walking into a courtroom where I was already presumed guilty. Victoria commanded the packed community center with the authority of someone who'd never been challenged in 8 years of absolute power. She presented her formal legal proposal with theatrical precision. Due to escalating safety violations, persistent community complaints, and documented negative impact on neighborhood property values, I hereby motion that we invoke emergency eminent domain authority to acquire the Henderson property for essential community use. Audible gasps rippled through the room as neighbors realized Victoria was trying to literally steal my land through legal manipulation. She'd come prepared for total war, armed with a false petition containing 47 signatures, fabricated safety inspection reports, and professionally doctored photographs. I stood up calmly, knowing this was my one chance to turn the tables. Before we discuss property seizure, I'd like to exercise our legal right to request complete HOA financial transparency. As paying residents, we deserve to see exactly where our money goes, especially regarding property acquisitions. Victoria was caught completely off guard. "That information isn't relevant to current safety issues under discussion," she stammered, but I could see panic flickering in her eyes. "Actually, it's completely relevant," I replied, "especially regarding the HOA's recent history of lakefront property acquisitions." The room fell silent as neighbors began connecting dots they'd never considered before. Rachel took the microphone and connected her laptop to the wall projector, transforming the community center into a data analysis presentation. "Good evening, everyone. I'm a certified real estate data analyst. Marcus asked me to conduct comprehensive research on recent property sales in this community." Her spreadsheet appeared on the wall, showing detailed financial information that made several board members shift uncomfortably. "In the past 36 months, your HOA has acquired 8 lakefront properties. Total purchase price, $1.4 million. Current estimated market value, $2.8 million. That's a $1.4 million profit in 3 years. Rachel continued with the systematic revelation that would destroy Victoria's empire. But here's the pattern that emerged from my investigation. Every single seller reported receiving 20+ violation notices before agreeing to sell. Every single sale was 30 to 40% below fair market value. Every seller I interviewed used the identical phrase, "It was easier to sell than keep fighting the system." She displayed a visual timeline showing the systematic nature of Victoria's operation. New lakefront owners moved in with hope. Then, minor violation notices began, followed by escalating harassment with daily fines, and finally, HOA offers of below-market property purchase. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't about community standards or safety. This is systematic property theft through organized harassment. Victoria desperately attempted to shut down the presentation as her carefully constructed authority crumbled. This is completely inappropriate. We're here to address immediate safety violations, not listen to conspiracy theories. But the damage was already done. The community was seeing the truth for the first time. Mr. Thompson stood with quiet dignity and delivered the killing blow. Victoria, I was one of those forced sellers. You systematically made my life hell until I gave up my family home. The floodgates opened as multiple residents began speaking simultaneously, sharing their own horror stories of Victoria's systematic abuse. "You fined me $500 for a single garden gnome," shouted one neighbor. 37 violation notices about my fence being 1 inch too tall, called another. The room erupted as years of suppressed frustration and fear finally found their voice. I watched Victoria's empire collapse in real time as her victims spoke truth to power for the first time. Amanda Martinez was live streaming the entire meeting, and comments exploded in real time with messages of support and similar stories from other communities. The movement was spreading beyond our neighborhood boundaries. Victoria made one last desperate attempt to regain control, her voice rising to near hysteria. "This is a coordinated attack on democratically elected community leadership. Mr. Henderson is using outside agitators and paid consultants to undermine legitimate community values and destroy neighborhood harmony." But her words rang hollow against the mountain of evidence and personal testimonies. When she called for an emergency vote on property seizure, confident in her prepared support, the results were devastating. 12 votes against seizure, 4 votes for seizure, 3 abstentions. Victoria had suffered a crushing public defeat. After the official meeting ended, neighbors surrounded me with offers of support that proved the community was finally awakening from Victoria's reign of fear. Multiple families volunteered security assistance. Residents shared their own HOA horror stories, and an organized response group formed spontaneously. Several people filmed testimonials documenting their experiences with Victoria's harassment campaigns. The energy was electric. People were finally finding their voices after years of intimidation and fear. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like we weren't fighting alone. That night, Victoria paced her empty house in a fury, speaking to Tyler about escalating their campaign beyond anything they'd tried before. "This isn't over. That man has poisoned our neighbors against us. But I've been president for 8 years. I know everyone's deepest secrets, their vulnerabilities, their pressure points. Time to deploy everything." Meanwhile, someone slipped a detailed note under my door warning me about Victoria's private files on every resident, containing financial problems, marital issues, legal troubles, and medical information that she used for control and manipulation. Amanda's live stream spread far beyond our neighborhood, creating a viral movement that reached local news stations and state legislators. The story was becoming bigger than just our neighborhood. It was exposing a nationwide problem with HOA abuse and corruption. I created a professional video response presenting evidence methodically and interviewing Linda Rodriguez about her experience. Within 24 hours, it reached 50,000 views and caught the attention of civil rights attorneys across the state. Victoria convened an emergency board meeting to pursue immediate legal action against me. But Rachel warned me that Victoria's real desperation was just beginning. We formed the Lakefront Community Accountability Coalition with a strategic plan including comprehensive investigation of all HOA finances, documentation of every past harassment case, legal preparation for Victoria's inevitable retaliation, and community education about residents' rights. I understood now that we'd started this defending one property, but were actually fighting for the soul of our entire neighborhood. Victoria had lost her first major battle but retained significant power and years of accumulated leverage over residents through her secret files and blackmail operations. Victoria had just threatened to use everyone's deepest secrets against them. But what she didn't know was that someone close to her was about to betray her in the most shocking way possible. Can you guess who? This next betrayal absolutely destroyed Victoria's empire from the inside. If you're loving these insane plot twists, Recoil Stories has even more neighbor revenge stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Who do you think was about to stab Victoria in the back? 3 days after her humiliating defeat at the community meeting, Victoria launched her most vicious retaliation campaign yet. She orchestrated a public board meeting, specifically designed to humiliate members who had shown any sympathy toward me. Her voice dripped with barely controlled fury, as she systematically destroyed people who had dared to question her authority. To Diana, she said with ice-cold precision, some board members seem to have forgotten their fiduciary duty to established community standards. Perhaps those individuals should seriously consider whether they are suited for leadership positions that require backbone and loyalty. Her words carried the weight of unspoken threats, and everyone in the room understood she was declaring war on anyone who opposed her iron rule. After the meeting, Diana approached Victoria privately, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and desperate hope for reason. Victoria, maybe we should genuinely listen to resident concerns about, she began. But Victoria exploded with vicious intensity that shocked even those who knew her well. Are you questioning my leadership? Victoria snarled. Because I have some fascinating information about your son's drug-related legal troubles last year. Would it be unfortunate if that became a general community discussion topic? Would it not? Diana went pale as she realized the depth of Victoria's manipulation and blackmail operations. She walked away in shocked silence, but unknown to Victoria, this moment of cruelty would become the catalyst for her complete downfall. What Victoria did not know was that Diana had been secretly recording conversations since the public humiliation incident. As a retired paralegal with 30 years of experience, Diana recognized the legal implications of Victoria's blackmail threats and systematic abuse of power. She understood that Victoria's operation was criminal, not just unethical, and she had been gathering evidence while carefully maintaining her cover as a loyal board member. Victoria convened a private war council with Tyler and 2 HOA enforcement contractors, believing her inner circle was completely secure and loyal. The Henderson situation requires immediate direct action, she announced. Subtle legal harassment obviously is not working fast enough to achieve our timeline goals. She produced thick files containing detailed personal information on my supporters that she had gathered through private investigators and her network of informants. The files included Mr. Thompson's late property tax payments and modest pension struggles, Amanda Martinez's bitter divorce settlement details and custody concerns, and Frank Wilson's minor bankruptcy from 2019 and current financial stress. Everyone has pressure points and vulnerabilities, Victoria explained with cold calculation. It is time to systematically exploit them. Over the following 48 hours, Victoria's coordinated attacks began targeting anyone who had publicly supported me. Mr. Thompson received an anonymous IRS tip about supposedly unreported rental income that was completely fabricated. Amanda got an official HOA violation for excessive children's noise levels regarding the playground equipment in her own backyard. Frank received a citation for unauthorized home business for tutoring his own grandchildren. Victoria's intimidation strategy succeeded in terrifying several key supporters who could not afford to fight back. Amanda called me with tears in her voice. I cannot afford legal battles with kids to protect. I am sorry, Marcus, but I have to back away from supporting you publicly. Frank contacted me next, his voice filled with shame but also genuine fear. I am truly sorry, but I need to lay low. I cannot risk my financial stability at my age. Victoria's systematic pressure campaign succeeded in scaring away most of my public supporters, leaving only Isabella, Rachel, Mr. Thompson, and me visibly committed to the fight. Victoria believed she was regaining control and momentum through fear and intimidation. Diana contacted me through an encrypted message that led to a covert meeting at the old fishing pier at 9 p.m. Marcus, "I have been recording Victoria for weeks," she announced without preamble. "What she is doing is not just unethical community management. It is organized criminal activity." Diana pulled out a small recording device and played the most damning evidence I had ever heard. Victoria's recorded voice was clear and unmistakable. "The Henderson property will be ours within 60 days, maximum. I have perfected this acquisition system over 8 years. Harassment, violations, financial pressure, community ostracism, personal destruction. No one has ever held out longer than 6 months against the full treatment." Tyler's voice joined the recording. "What if he keeps fighting like an idiot?" Victoria's response chilled me to the bone. "Then we escalate to complete personal destruction. I have comprehensive dirt on everyone in this neighborhood. And if I do not have enough information, I can create it through strategic rumors and planted evidence." Diana revealed the shocking scope of Victoria's operation. She has been systematically blackmailing board members for 3 years. She employs private investigators, maintains fake social media accounts, and has actually planted physical evidence of violations on people's properties. Diana showed me a thick documentation file. This contains everything: financial fraud evidence, extortion recordings, conspiracy documentation, but I need protective immunity. She will completely destroy my life if she discovers my betrayal. Diana's comprehensive documentation included bank records showing Victoria's illegal consulting fee payments, email correspondence with private investigation services, photographs of Victoria personally planting violation evidence on residents' properties, a complete list of blackmail material maintained on 23 different residents, audio recordings of threats against board members, and financial documents showing systematic property value manipulation. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniably criminal. We developed a sophisticated exposure strategy. Copy all evidence to multiple secure cloud locations. Time public revelation for maximum community impact. Coordinate simultaneous involvement of local law enforcement, and establish legal protection for Diana before exposure. Victoria, completely unaware of Diana's betrayal, moved forward with her final acquisition phase with overconfident arrogance. She called me with fake generosity. "Mr. Henderson, I am prepared to make you an extraordinarily generous offer. $200,000 cash for your property, quick closing, new inspections, new complications." When I pointed out this was $150,000 below current market value, Victoria replied without shame, "Well, considering the substantial difficulties you have been experiencing and the clear community sentiment against your disruptive presence, it is actually remarkably fair and generous." Victoria organized a concerned neighbors emergency meeting where she presented falsified petitions and threatened legal action against any residents who continued supporting me. That night, I hit my lowest emotional point and told Isabella, "Maybe we should just take their money and escape this nightmare. This constant warfare is destroying our lives and hurting innocent neighbors." Isabella's crucial response became our rallying cry. "She is counting on breaking our spirit." But Diana risked everything to help us expose the truth. We cannot abandon her or future victims now. Diana scheduled an emergency executive board session for the following evening, and Victoria suspected nothing because she believed it was about finalizing my removal process. Victoria celebrated prematurely with Tyler. "Tomorrow night, we finish this once and for all. By next week, you will have your dream lake house, and this neighborhood will remember exactly who is really in charge." All elements were perfectly positioned for explosive revelation. Comprehensive evidence secured and copied. Legal authorities secretly briefed and prepared. Local media contacts established and ready, and community allies informed through secure channels. Tomorrow would determine whether justice and truth still meant something in our community. Diana reviewed her evidence files one final time. "I should have found the courage to do this years ago, but it is better late than never for truth and justice." Diana was about to play that explosive recording in front of the entire board, but Victoria had one final, desperate move that could either save her empire or destroy everything she had worked for. What do you think she was planning? Type escape if you think Victoria tried to flee, or type attack if you think she went on the offensive against Diana. 1 week later, I found myself walking into the Superior Court of Justice, knowing that everything we had fought for would be decided in this sterile, intimidating room where justice was supposed to be blind, but often seemed to favor whoever had the best lawyers. Victoria Sterling and Tyler Sterling faced comprehensive criminal charges, systematic fraud and embezzlement of HOA community funds, organized extortion and blackmail of residents, conspiracy to commit property theft through harassment, criminal harassment, and intimidation of multiple families, and filing false police reports with document forgery. Victoria arrived at the courthouse in an expensive suit, still believing her manipulation skills would save her from the mountain of evidence Diana had provided to prosecutors. Victoria's high-priced attorney attempted to portray her as a dedicated community servant being victimized by a vindictive new resident with personal vendetta. Your Honor, Mrs. Sterling has served her community faithfully and voluntarily for 8 years. These outrageous charges stem from a coordinated character assassination campaign by Mr. Henderson, who simply refuses to follow basic community standards that protect everyone's property values. I had Alex Rivera, a celebrated civil rights attorney specializing in HOA abuse cases nationwide, who had contacted me after the viral video spread to the legal community. Alex's methodical approach was simple: let Victoria's own documented actions speak for themselves. Rachel testified as a certified expert witness, presenting the financial fraud evidence with clinical precision. The HOA systematically acquired $2.8 million in lakefront properties for only $1.4 million. Victoria Sterling voted herself $180,000 in unauthorized consulting fees over 3 years. Her testimony painted a picture of systematic property value manipulation for personal profit that had been hidden from residents for years. The courtroom gallery was packed with neighbors who gasped as they learned the true scope of Victoria's financial crimes against their own community. Diana took the witness stand under a comprehensive immunity agreement, and her testimony was devastating in its calm, factual delivery of years of systematic abuse. She presented Victoria's secret files containing residents' private personal information, played multiple audio recordings of Victoria threatening board members, and detailed the systematic intimidation campaign affecting 23-plus families. The courtroom fell silent when Diana played Victoria's recorded voice. I own this neighborhood completely. I know everyone's darkest secrets, and I am absolutely not afraid to use them. Several jurors looked physically sick as they realized the depth of Victoria's criminal manipulation of vulnerable families. A parade of Victoria's victims provided testimony that painted a picture of systematic harassment and financial exploitation. Linda Rodriguez described receiving 47 violation notices in 6 months for a decorative garden gnome. Mr. Thompson testified that she systematically forced me to sell my family home through daily harassment campaigns. Amanda Martinez's voice shook as she described how Victoria threatened to report me to Child Protective Services if I continued supporting Marcus. Multiple other families described identical harassment patterns that proved Victoria's operation was organized, systematic, and designed to break people's spirits until they surrendered their property rights. As overwhelming evidence mounted against her, Victoria's composed facade completely crumbled in full view of the courtroom. She began interrupting witnesses, arguing with the judge, and revealing her true controlling nature that she had hidden behind a mask of community service for 8 years. These people do not understand proper community standards, Victoria shouted. They are trying to destroy everything I built to protect our neighborhood values. Judge Henderson had to bang his gavel repeatedly for order. Mrs. Sterling, control yourself immediately, or you will be held in contempt of court. Under intense cross-examination pressure, Tyler threw Victoria completely under the bus. Everything was my mom's idea. She promised I deserved the lake house. She made me break into his property. During the lunch recess, Alex received a crucial call from Rachel. Transaction is completely finalized. All paperwork signed and recorded. After lunch, Victoria took the witness stand in her own defense, attempting one last desperate gambit. Your Honor, I admit I may have made some administrative mistakes, but I was genuinely protecting our community. Mr. Henderson was disruptive and dangerous. She tried to play the victim. I am already financially ruined by these unfair legal costs. I have been forced to sell my family home just to pay for legal defense. Alex stood for cross-examination with a confident smile. Mrs. Sterling, You mentioned selling your house to pay legal fees. Can you tell this court exactly who purchased your family home? Victoria looked confused and irritated. What does that possibly matter? Some real estate investor. Alex produced official purchase documents with theatrical precision. Actually, let me refresh your memory completely. The buyer was Lakefront Properties LLC, and the sole owner of that company is Mr. Marcus Henderson. The courtroom exploded as Victoria screamed hysterically, "That is my house! You cannot steal my house!" Judge Henderson banged his gavel repeatedly for order, as I stood calmly and said, "Actually, it was your house. I bought it completely fair and square when you desperately needed money." Alex explained our brilliant setup. Rachel had monitored Victoria's mounting financial desperation, and when Victoria desperately needed quick cash for legal fees, she put her house on the market. I purchased it through a legitimate shell company at full market price. The final verdicts delivered justice that felt almost too good to be true. Victoria Sterling received 3 years in prison, $500,000 in criminal restitution, and a lifetime ban from HOA leadership anywhere in the state. Tyler Sterling got 18 months in prison, 500 hours of community service, and a permanent restraining order. The courtroom gallery, packed with grateful neighbors, erupted in cheers and applause as 8 years of terror finally ended. Local news interviewed me outside the courthouse. This case demonstrates what happens when community power goes completely unchecked. No family should have to fight this hard just to live peacefully in their legally owned home. As Victoria was led away in handcuffs, she turned toward me with pure hatred. "You think you have won something? This neighborhood will never truly accept you." I responded with quiet dignity. "Victoria, this was never about community acceptance. This was always about basic human decency and justice." I announced my plans to convert Victoria's former house into a community center. The building once used to plan systematic harassment campaigns will now serve all the people she tried to control and exploit. Everything had happened within just 2 months. From that first insane 911 call to this moment of complete justice. But the story does not end there. 3 months later, something happened that proved this victory was just the beginning of something much bigger. What do you think Marcus discovered? The final chapter will absolutely blow your mind. This victory created a ripple effect that changed everything. If you are invested in this incredible journey, Recoil Stories has more jaw-dropping community drama that will keep you hooked. What do you think Marcus found when he renovated Victoria's house? 3 months later, the transformation of our community was nothing short of miraculous. Victoria's former house buzzed with joyful activity as our new community center. Children's art classes filled the living room with laughter. Democratic neighborhood meetings took place in the dining room. Community garden planning sessions bloomed in the backyard, and Mr. Thompson taught woodworking skills in the converted garage, while Isabella led painting workshops in Victoria's old study. The energy was completely different. Instead of fear and intimidation, the space radiated hope, collaboration, and genuine community spirit. My dream lake house was finally completed and transformed into a showcase of sustainable community design. Solar panels were seamlessly integrated with architectural beauty. Native plant gardens attracted butterflies and birds from across the neighborhood. A small community dock welcomed neighbors for fishing and recreation, and art installations created collaboratively by local residents turned the property into a living gallery. The open-door policy I'd established meant neighbors felt welcome anytime, creating the exact opposite of Victoria's exclusive, intimidating approach to community management. Without Victoria's systematic intimidation, property improvement projects boomed as residents lost their fear of arbitrary violation notices. Young families actively sought homes in our area, attracted by genuine community spirit rather than rigid authoritarian control. Property values increased significantly due to authentic neighborhood pride and cooperation. HOA meetings became collaborative problem-solving sessions instead of dictatorial lectures, with Diana Walsh leading by example as our unanimously elected new president. Diana told me with tears in her eyes, "You gave me the courage to do what I should have done years ago." The national movement that grew from our local victory exceeded anything I could have imagined. Major media attention included a feature on 60 Minutes about the nationwide HOA abuse epidemic. I was interviewed on multiple podcasts about property rights and community justice, and our story became required reading in law schools across 3 states. State legislators passed the Community Accountability Act directly inspired by our case, mandating financial transparency for all HOA operations and criminal penalties for retaliatory harassment campaigns. Communities across the country reached out for help, with 15 to 20 emails weekly from families facing their own Victoria Sterling situations. Our supporters experienced their own vindication and personal growth. Mr. Thompson became the beloved community garden coordinator, finding renewed purpose in retirement. Amanda Martinez's children played freely without fear of harassment, and she became a vocal advocate for family-friendly community policies. Rachel started a successful consulting business helping other communities fight systematic HOA abuse. The financial justice component included a restitution fund for Victoria's previous victims, with Linda Rodriguez receiving a $100,000 option to buy back into the community. The simple pleasures we'd fought so hard to preserve had been restored beyond our wildest dreams. Morning coffee watching sunrise over the peaceful lake, Isabella painting in the community art garden, children's laughter replacing the sound of violation notices, and community potluck dinners filled with authentic friendship. New traditions emerged: monthly neighborhood gatherings, annual summer lake festivals, children's nature education programs, and senior citizen technology classes. The unexpected deep friendships formed during our fight became precious gifts. Mr. Thompson became a surrogate grandfather figure. Amanda's children called us uncle and aunt, and Diana and Isabella developed weekly art therapy sessions. Sitting peacefully by the lake where this whole journey began, I reflected on the deeper lessons we'd learned. I initially thought this was about one woman's power trip, I told Isabella as she painted the sunset, but it was really about what happens when good people choose silence over justice. Victoria succeeded for years because nobody wanted to rock the boat. Isabella looked up from her canvas and smiled. Any regrets about buying this particular property? I laughed. Only that it took so long to find the courage to fight back. The ongoing mission continued through the stack of mail on my desk. Heartfelt thank you cards from liberated neighbors, urgent requests for help from other besieged communities, interview requests from national journalists, and one unopened letter from Victoria, in prison that would remain unopened forever. Our community center displayed a memorial plaque reading, "In memory of all who suffered in silence, and in honor of those who found their voice." Sometimes the smallest acts of courage create the biggest changes in the world. Looking at my peaceful lake view, I told Isabella, "Remember when our biggest worry was whether the fish would appreciate our new dock?" The phone rang with a familiar pattern, caller ID showing Sunshine Valley HOA, urgent. Isabella and I looked at each other, and she nodded with a knowing smile. I answered confidently, "Henderson speaking, how can we help you?" Because some fights are absolutely worth fighting, no matter the personal cost. Some bullies need to learn that their reign of terror has a definite expiration date. Our lake is completely peaceful now. But there are other lakes, other neighborhoods, other families who deserve to live without systematic fear and harassment. That phone call from Sunshine Valley HOA was about to lead Marcus into an even more twisted case involving something Victoria could never have imagined. But will he take on another impossible fight? The lesson here is simple. Bullies like Victoria only have power when good people stay silent. Sometimes standing up to injustice costs everything. But the alternative, living in fear, costs even more. If this story inspired you to never back down from doing what's right, smash that like button. And if these real neighbor drama stories bring value to your day, consider supporting us with a small donation. Every bit helps us keep bringing you these incredible true stories. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next video where we dive into Marcus's most dangerous case yet.